Good morning. My name is Sandy McDonald, and I'm the Director of the Office of Economic and Small Business Development. And we want to thank you for joining us this morning for our Business Resiliency workshop, or this year we're calling it a town hall. And we do our Business Resiliency town hall / workshop each year so that we can prepare our business community and our municipalities for what we know here in South Florida is hurricane season. So I would like to start this off by saying that I hope each one of you and your family and your employer as well as your employees are all being safe, remaining safe, and we all look forward to the time when we can come back together in a safe manner and continue to address the business of the county as well as you address your business and your organizations. But this morning, we want to make sure that we can have our partners to come and speak to you and share information as we do annually about business resiliency. It's kind of unique this year because some of the things you're going to hear that we're preparing you for are things that we are assured that you're also dabbling in right now. Some of the things that you would normally use to get prepared is some of the things that you hopefully have just used during this COVID period. The Office of Economic and Small Business Development on behalf of Broward County, we work with our public-private partner, the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, and we'll assemble all of the business community, the financial institutions, educational institutions, and we try to assure that Broward can sustain and maintain itself by attracting new business, but more importantly, or just as important, sustaining existing business and expanding business opportunities right here in Broward County. We also make sure that our international traffic, the ideal of exporting and importing, also takes place in a manner that benefits the county and its businesses, especially its small businesses. And my office also uniquely and specifically works with the small businesses in Broward County to assure that at least 25% of what the county procures, we procure with small businesses certified through our program. But one of the other important roles that we play as the county's Economic Development Office in terms of providing support throughout the year is you're also going to hear about the ESF 18 function. And that's why we're here today as a part of this overall team to share information as we try to prepare you as businesses, as individuals, and as municipalities, try to get you ready for the hurricane season. So I want to start off by thanking each one of my presenters today. We certainly couldn't do this without them. And they're going to have valuable information, substantive information to share with each one of you. And I also believe I have my good friend, the Regional Director of the SBDC, Sandra. If you're on, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for sending a team member. And for everyone who has taken the time out this morning, we appreciate you taking the time out. And again, we often say, whether it's a workshop face-to-face, whether it's this virtual workshop, we know you can't always get it. We want to make sure at the end of the day that you can also stay in touch with this office for additional support. So with that, again, I'm going to get ready to get this program started. And the first person I'm going to introduce you to is another one of our team members, and that's Mr. Tracy Jackson. Tracy, welcome, and take it over.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I brought one picture that I'd like to share with everybody, and then I'm going to talk just a little bit. My goal is to affect the way you think today and to maybe encourage you to think a bit differently. Now, Sandy, I'm a little new to the Zoom world, so let's see. You guys have the slide up for us? Look at that. Well, hey, okay. Yeah, that's me. I'm the Director of Regional Emergency Services and Communications. But this is a slide I wanted to talk to y'all about. There's a word there that says resiliency. Before I tell you what I think how it applies to you, let me tell you how it applies to us at my workplace. My team, our goal is to help make all of Broward safer, stronger, and more resilient no matter the threat. Safer, stronger, more resilient no matter the threat. Now, let me give you guys a definition of that word resilience. So you're hearing a lot about it. This is not my definition, but it's one that I like from a man named Adam Grant. He says, I don't think there's any skill more critical for success than resilience. I think about resilience as the speed and strength of your response to adversity. So when you encounter a difficulty, a hardship, a challenge, how quickly and how effectively are you able to marshal strength and either overcome that challenge or persevere in the face of it? And the reason I chose this image is because it represents that, right? So if you're from South Florida, you're very, very familiar with the palm trees, and we're looking at palm trees right now under a wind load. There's an actual hurricane coming in. You see that they've taken a different shape than they normally do because they're responding to the wind. The wind is flowing through them, the wind is flowing around them, and because they are resilient, they will more than likely survive the storm. If you look at the word resiliency and right above the R, there are a couple of other trees there, not so resilient. Those trees were uprooted because they were not able to respond effectively and efficiently to the winds. The way that those trees were structured put them in a dangerous position when the storm came, and so they became uprooted, and I would say due to a lack of resiliency. Let me ask you a question. How resilient are your business operations? How prepared are you to change when a storm comes? And not just a physical storm, but we're experiencing a storm now with this pandemic. My operation is an all hazards operation. There could be an explosion that causes power to go out, that causes your business to go offline. There could be a flood. There could be a sewer leak. There are many, many, many things that can impact how we operate day to day. My question to you is, how resilient are you? What kind of plans do you have in place so that if you have to, for example, vacate that building or come in a different entrance or repair the roof in one corner and still maintain business operations, how resilient are you? It's important to be prepared before the storm comes. Having a plan, and you're going to get a lot of great information today about how to maintain your business, how to make sure that you're set to have business operations. But my goal today is to get you to think about it a little bit differently. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make a 100% weather prediction here. There will be a hurricane in South Florida between now and the next 20 years, right? So we know that's going to happen. What can we do to make sure that we're ready for it ahead of time? With this pandemic that we've experienced, have you modified your plans and thought about the things that you've learned so far and added those into your upcoming plans? I'm hoping that everyone's on their tiptoes now because we've been kind of operating in a different mode, and allowing ourselves to think differently is the best way to prepare ourselves and our businesses for an uncertain future. I want you guys to know, especially for businesses, how happy we are that you're here with us today and how much you all mean to us in Broward County. Nothing will happen here without you and people like you being successful and thriving. And we're going to do everything we can in regional emergency services, along with ESF 18, which Sandy leads, and everybody else to make sure that you guys are supported and cared for to the best of our ability while you help us take care of Broward County. That ends my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for your comments. And if I didn't mention, Tracy Jackson is our director for our emergency management division here at Broward County, and assuring that all of us through our emergency support functions are ready and are able to serve our community and the greater community as we go through these incidents. And one of the things that I would like for our audience, please feel free to begin to write your questions down. We will be entertaining questions at the end. We are going to ask that we are allowed to go through all of our presenters, but we'll certainly have time to address questions at the conclusion of our presentations. So next I want to bring up one of our partners, one of our close partners in terms of who we are and what we do. And again, Sandra, I want to thank you and the SBDC for participating and allowing one of your team members to join us today. And this team member joins me for the last couple of years when we do our business resiliency workshop. So I want to welcome Mr. Chang. So Mr. Chang, thank you, and the show is yours.
Hi, Sandy. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today. Sandra, thank you again for inviting me to this. And thank you everyone for attending. So we're here to discuss the business continuity side of things in regards to, let's say, the hurricane season. Now, everyone, I realize I'm just going to do a brief overview of what we do. We're the SBDC, the Florida SBDC at FAU, and we cover both Palm Beach and Broward counties. We have 9 regional offices, and they're all throughout the state. So even though we are only serving Broward and Palm Beach counties, you will find an SBDC office in any region in the state of Florida. And we're state designated as Florida's principal provider of small business assistance. We're funded by the SBA and through the state of Florida, as well as DLA. And we work with the state university and college system. Next slide, please. This is just a brief picture of who we are. We have a team of experienced professionals, thousands of years of work of business ownership experience, and there's a lot of certified and credentialed individuals here. Next slide. And these are the individuals and the business types, the segments that we operate within. So we look at pre-ventures, which are individuals who are looking to start their business and they're looking for the feasibility of starting that business. We can assist you on that side. In addition, starting the business, we'll guide you through that process. And the main emphasis is on the SME businesses. And these are businesses that have been established for 3 years or more and have more than 5 employees. We focus on innovating the structure that they have and the thought process. In addition, the growth segment of your business, we can work with you on various avenues in regards to the marketing, international trade, as well as government contracting. Next slide, please. And I'm sorry, I'm going very quickly here. I'm trying to cover this in 10 minutes. So the professional consulting that we do is all personalized, confidential, and provided at no cost. And it's always done typically on the one-on-one, face-to-face interactions. However, during this COVID-19 response, we have transitioned to online only. So you would find that either we would be able to have a phone session or we would be able to have a Zoom meeting as we are right now. In addition, you'd find that we have access to research data and we're able to assist you in regards to providing some sort of decision-making data that can drive your decisions in regards to any disasters that we may have, as well as current business and economic factors. Next slide. These are some of the specialized services that we provide: international trade, government contracting, growth acceleration, and capital access. Now, this is going to be key in regards to our services provided on the business continuity and disaster assistance side. And this, in regards to capital access, I will explain a little later on for disaster loans. Next slide. So we are here for you before, during, and after a disaster. We'll work with you to create a plan. And this is one of the vehicles that the SBDC on the statewide system has. And we can actually remotely operate out of these vehicles. So during Hurricane Michael, you'd find that these vehicles were inactive, and we were actually on site, even though there were no power situations, etc. It was difficult to get anywhere. And you could meet with an SBDC consultant on this vehicle. Next slide. Now we get to the disaster side of the presentation. So this is what your typical disaster looks like. I believe everyone's aware of the hurricanes and what they can do. And this is a major factor, the winds, as well as the storm surge. I'll get into a little bit more details later. Next slide. Hurricane Irma is one of the largest hurricanes to ever hit the state. As you can see with the middle Doppler image there, this hurricane actually covered almost the entire state, and the damage was significant. And you'd find that during a disaster, there are many ways of operating your business. And one key thing that you'd like to do is make sure that your business survives. Next slide. So after a disaster, people are looking to recover. So what is the impact? According to the National Small Business Poll, there's 10% of man-made disasters that are impacting businesses. 30% are natural disasters. So 30% of your disasters are going to be natural. But I think in regards to Florida, you're talking that natural disaster more than likely will be in the form of a hurricane. With COVID-19 being what it is, I think we're going to have to revisit that number and see exactly if this is natural or something man-made, according to reports. Next slide. Business continuity and planning. So planning is a great part of your business, as everyone knows. Your business plan is a major part, but your disaster preparedness side, having a continuity plan not only helps you survive the disaster, but it also gives you a competitive advantage. This competitive advantage gives you the ability to say, hey, if this disaster strikes or happens, how will my company react? And it will reduce your time in reacting to said disaster. Next slide. So key topics, what you're going to look for is what makes your business run. Who, what, where, and how. During this COVID-19, I assume everyone has revisited their BCP, business continuity plan, and they've looked at the where. Because more than likely, you've had to transition to a separate location. Sandy, I see you're in your office, but the other individuals here more than likely are operating from a satellite location, either their homes or, such as myself, my home. And this is where we need to address this. And again, the business continuity plan that you worked on last year may be relevant now. However, it is a living document, and that document needs to be changed, and the revisions are critical. So you need to find out what is a critical part of your business. What makes your business run? What is essential? What is non-essential? And I think with COVID-19, we're finding that IT is becoming a very, very critical part of every business in all segments. Contacts that you're going to need to have in your business continuity plan is, for instance, a banker. A lot of individuals are interested in going after some loans. And for instance, the PPP plan for the COVID-19, there was an instance, maybe many of you in the business community did not believe or think that you had a banker affiliated to your product, but you do. And I believe everyone made the extra effort to reach out to that banker for the PPP funding. An accountant is key. They're gonna, when a disaster hits, you're gonna need to find out what your accountant has in terms of your tax returns. Either you keep a copy or you have it available. Now, in this case, you're gonna make sure that you have copies as well as you have digital images. Insurance agents, you may wanna have their contact information, and lawyers if needed. Next slide. Critical records. Again, this is reiterating the same point. Identify the vital records to perform critical functions, and then you want to make multiple copies of vital records. And this is in part which are backups of the computer system, as well as paper and printed material. So you may want to have a photographic record of inventory or furnishings in regards to a disaster such as a hurricane. You may have an office today, and tomorrow that office may not be there if a hurricane hits. So you may want to take pictures dating. Hey, there's a hurricane in the on the map, and as a result, we've gone ahead and taken some pictures. This is what the office looks like today before the disaster, and you want to have those pictures dated and time-stamped. Next slide. Critical operations. This is where you look into your business and say payroll, for instance, needs to go on, as well as debt obligations. You want to make sure you have a good handle on all those records, and also be able to communicate with the partners and the individuals that you need to. Next slide. Planning doesn't stop. So what does that mean? You need to train your employees. For instance, with COVID-19, everyone's realizing that now you must have the PPE, and that's going to be a critical part of your BCP. And we are not certain when that will expire. So it's good good training if you revisit your business continuity plan, take a look at it, and maybe put that into one of the process for your front end forward-facing staff. Those individuals will be at risk. In addition, they will be the image of your company. I do understand that it's not very pleasant to have a face mask when speaking to an individual. However, maybe if you are within that 6-foot distance, you may need to have that face mask there. All right. Implement and exercise your plan. That's a key part. Make sure that you're looking at the plan and you're exercising it at least once a year. Monitor the performance and evaluate the effectiveness. This is where you revisit the existing plan, and as different situations arise, you just evaluate it and you pivot from there. Okay, next slide. Okay, and this is basics to smooth recovery. So what you want to do is document your damage and the impact. Now, damage could be economic injury, or it can also be physical injury. And I'll explain that when it comes to the SBA, and I believe Althea from the SBA can get more into details there. And you also want to have your insurance agent. You want to contact the SBDC, and I'll get into this a little later. In regards to the bridge loan, the Florida Disaster Bridge Loan, and the SBA disaster loans. You want to communicate with your customers, make sure that all suppliers and employees know what this current situation is. For instance, Palm Beach County, Broward County, and Dade, Miami-Dade counties may not be reopening as soon as the rest of the state of Florida. So you may have some implications there in regards to your service deliverables. So you may want to communicate with partners who are outside of your regional offices, your state, let them know current situations. File for tax extensions if applicable, and avoid contractor frauds and scams. These are a couple of websites that you can visit that'll help you put together a plan if you do not have one as of yet. And they'll hit on some key topics, and you will be able to work with that plan. Next slide. So this is in regards to the small business disaster or emergency bridge loan. And this is a short-term loan that is interest-free. It's for working capital. It's to bridge the gap between the major disaster hitting your business and when your insurance policy or longer term in terms of maybe federal SBA money comes into your hands. This is typically, it can be 6 months all the way out to a year. I cannot give you specific guidelines due to the fact that each disaster has their own structure. For instance, for COVID-19, there was a 1-year term for all loans, and it went up to at least $100,000. Those funds are now expired or no longer available. So what we'll do is we are working with clients on the SBA fund. Again, this is not a grant. This particular program is not a grant. It is from the state of Florida, and it uses or utilizes public funding and must be repaid. Next slide. This is the SBA, Small Business Administration. Oh, yeah, great. So physical disaster, physical damage, disaster loans, and economic injury disaster loans. So two different loans, and some businesses are impacted physically in regards to an office being there one day and not being there the second. This is with your typical damage of a hurricane. However, it can be economic injury as well. As a result of the hurricane, we're out of power for 2 weeks. We're, and business suffered due to that. Next slide. Business resources. Okay, so this is where our resources are. That's our our state website, and you could reach us there and drill it down from the state website to find our local offices wherever you may be in the state of Florida. In regards to Florida bridge loans, you're looking at the floridadisasterloan.org webpage, as well as the Florida Damage Assessment Survey. Damage assessment surveys need to be completed before the bridge loan is activated. So it's critical that we work with you. And Sandy, his team, as well as the SBDC, can guide you to the damage assessment survey in the event of a disaster, such as a hurricane, as well as the SBA disaster loans. And that's a link where you can find information concerning the disaster loans through the SBA. Next slide. Finally, could your business survive a disaster? I think you're sitting here right now and we did go through a disaster and you did survive. And if you're in business and you clearly have the resiliency, as Tracy mentioned, it involves your risk management, your contingency planning, and your emergency preparedness. You have already overcome a great disaster here, and let's try and prepare you for if, knock on wood, a hurricane should come. Hopefully nothing comes this season, but we are hoping that the hurricane preparedness that we do work with you and help you along that way. And again, the SBDC is here, and we can help you with the entire process. And no cost, one-on-one consultant, either via Zoom or telephone. It's all confidential. To request consulting, just visit the sbdc.fau.edu and complete a request for consultation on our website, and a consultant will be contacting you to schedule that appointment. Thank you. Have a great day.
Mr. Chang, thank you, and thank SBDC for all of that information. And we did have a question earlier that I will address now. We will make this entire PowerPoint available. So this PowerPoint, when we're done, will definitely go up on our county website, so you'll have access to it. And as Mr. Chang just said towards the end, I want you to have access to it, because you also heard him say you can schedule the consultation. Consultation is also free. Folks, we need to make sure from our municipalities to our business community, everyone has their business resource plans, their continuity plan. Everyone needs to know each one of those resources, each one of those links, and have access to the individuals and the information that can support you and your business. Stephen?
Good morning. Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being a part of this very important conversation. I am the Economic Development Manager for the Office of Economic and Small Business Development, and one of the functions of our section is the coordination of Emergency Support Function 18. Emergency Support Function 18 is part of the larger emergency response architecture overseen by Tracy Jackson and our emergency response group. Our group focuses on the support. There are 18 functions that correlate with the support functions of the state of Florida. 18 supports business and industry, and that's what we do. We plan both for the recovery after events, as well as with working with our businesses to get them prepared prior to an event. And I think that between what Anil has shared with us on the continuity planning, and if you've said to yourself, as I have probably 1,000 times, I never dreamed of the scope of the emergency we currently find ourselves in. That should be in your planning in the pre-event planning process. So that should be part of your thinking, is what could be the absolute most unimaginable scenario and what kind of preparation do I have for that? So as we move into more virtual ways of conducting business, it's easy to sort of lose track of that. And so what we're here to do, both during emergencies and after, but especially before, is to work with you to help you think through ways to have your business prepared for some of these eventualities that may not have occurred to us before. So Emergency Support Function 18, we work jointly with the county's Convention and Visitors Bureau to support business and industry throughout the county, as well as our local municipalities and economic development partners in terms of getting and pushing information out, providing technical assistance to businesses, and supporting the private sector in terms of their preparation and recovery. We can move to the next slide. So part of what we do is, as you are, you're hearing about, in the typical context of hurricane season, those types of events, and you're hearing about, reports of where power outages are, where businesses cannot go back into their facilities, what supermarkets are open, what businesses are currently operating. Those are all the kinds of things that Emergency Support Function works very closely with the private sector on to make sure that we are funneling that information up to our policymakers, to our decision makers, both within the county, and to push that information out to the public. So in a lot of cases, when you're hearing about store closures or store openings or hotel closures, those are all being funneled in a lot of cases through Emergency Support 18. And we spend a good deal of our staff time working through kind of monitoring those types of situations so that we can keep the public informed, and so that we can assist businesses in terms of understanding what the general lay of the land is, as well as informing our individual residents on which businesses are open and which ones have been affected. Now, part of what we want to do as quickly as possible, and Anil touched on this, one of the key things, one of the key priorities for us is to get information regarding the effects and the impact of emergencies and disasters to our state and our local policymakers as quickly as possible. And the best tool we have for that is a damage assessment survey. And so we're always pushing that out through every channel we have, through all of our economic development partners. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're doing that safely. So we want to keep businesses informed and help facilitate their ability to go in and assess damage and see how their businesses have been affected. But it's one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing, because that drives all of the policy decisions with respect to how much aid gets moved to what communities in the recovery phase. And so we help businesses, we communicate things like the all clear orders, we communicate with our local municipalities so that businesses have good direction on when they can, when law enforcement, when emergency responders have indicated that areas are safe to return to, so we can move on. And so that becomes one of our key components. And so we support the activation of the Florida Emergency Bridge Loan. Our partners, the SBDC, manage that process. They administer that program in partnership with the Department of Economic Opportunity. But one of the things that we do to support it is to make sure we're pushing that information up, getting good communication to our partners at the SBDC and DEO, trying to get as much information into the system from businesses as we can to help them make good decisions on when to release those funds, when to move those applications forward and open the application process. So we can go. Now, we spend a good deal of time in the recovery phase, and although we work very closely with businesses on preparation plans, on continuity plans, on things that you should be thinking about to get your business ready for an emergency, the reality is the bulk of our work comes after these events in many cases, as we're beginning as businesses are beginning to get stood up again. And so disseminating information to those businesses is important. But as I mentioned, just as, we've said to ourselves, wow, we never dreamed that things could be the way that they are now, we try to make the kinds of contingency plans to be able to respond to the unanticipated. And one of the ways that we do that is through the establishment of business recovery centers. And what these business recovery centers are there areas that we identify around the county where we can marshal resources together to help businesses who may not be able to get back into their locations, businesses who may have been affected even when they're home businesses, and they may have been affected by, internet outages or other outages which don't allow them to communicate with their employees, or don't allow them to communicate, most importantly, or as importantly, with their customers. Because when we're having events here in Florida, while the entire country can see these events happening, they can see that there's a hurricane, the reality is once your business goes dark and your customers are in other parts of the country, and as we've seen, with some of the communication issues that have been related to this current pandemic, being able to reestablish that contact with your customers is very important to the future of your business. And so we recognize that, and what we try to do is work with our municipal partners, work with our economic development partners to stand up business recovery centers where we need to, where we've identified that there's a need within the county, and work to try to provide basic facilities that businesses can come and access to make contact with their employees, to make contact with their customers. And so we assess, and damage assessment surveys help us do this. We assess where within the county we may need to go in, establish a center, and then provide some of those services. And some of those services include the dissemination of disaster and recovery information. We help our businesses in terms of finding that information, understanding it, understanding what programs are available to access. We work closely with our municipal partners. They are the legs in a lot of cases for us in terms of reaching businesses at the community level. And so we try to push that information as much as we can down into our municipalities and support them in terms of getting that information out and getting technical assistance to businesses, getting that deployed when we are in the recovery phase. And then, of course, some of the programs that Anil mentioned, some of the programs that will be mentioned later with Althea in terms of those short and long-term support mechanisms for businesses. We help them understand it, we help them access those applications, and we can provide some basic technical assistance in terms of understanding those programs and applying for that assistance. You can move on to the next one, Steve. And one of the things that, beyond the recovery loans and beyond the bridge loans, in a lot of cases, we're also dealing with, especially in the case of hurricanes and those kinds of disasters, we are frequently dealing with a lot of workforce issues where, employers may have employees who've left the area ahead of a storm. Employers who may need assistance in terms of getting their locations back up and running, may need recovery type, remediation type activities. And so we also work very closely with our local workforce development board, which in this case is CareerSource Broward, to make sure that we're connecting employers to the kinds of human resources that they need in that recovery phase. To make sure that if there are short-term needs that can be satisfied, or they can be assisted in getting satisfied through temporary workers and things of that nature, that we funnel them to our workforce development partner, because those resources are already paid for. So our local workforce development board is already supported through federal and state funds to provide services to our employers, and also to some of our displaced employees. And so we also try to connect folks on that level. So beyond just the loans and financial assistance, there's also the workforce. Most folks are trying to, if they've lost employment or if they've been displaced, they're trying to get back to work. And so, that's why we try to bring our partner in, make sure that they are connected and that they can access the services that they need. And then, of course, by using our recovery centers to have folks that are able to get back on the internet, get back on their social media sites, get back to their customers. These are the kinds of things that we try to do to keep business going through this recovery phase. And then as additional assistance comes on board, we're able to push that information out through our network of partners and through our network of business recovery centers. So when you're hearing these announcements of business recovery center opening in a certain area, we've made that assessment and we're making sure that we get to move those resources into that area. And so business recovery centers are a very important part of our recovery effort, making sure that businesses can have the access to the important tools they need, especially right after an event. so that they can reconnect and try to get back to business as quickly as possible. And that's, in a nutshell, what we do within the emergency support function 18, especially with our business recovery center. Now, we have this slide, and this is important. I want to mention this before we move on to the next speaker, Sandy. We work with a partner, the Black Business Investment Fund, BBIF. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about, preparation before the fact, continuity plans, getting yourself ready for the next event. Well, BBIF has funding available. They're one of the sources, one of our partners that provides funding for businesses to make expenditures and investments in preparatory activities. So they will help businesses on the front end, and they have special funds available on the front end for businesses to make key and strategic purchases that are focused on getting prepared, getting yourself ready for a hurricane, hardening your facilities. Those kinds of things on the front end, because there's always a lot of talk about getting prepared, but for businesses who may not have the resources, BBIF is one of the partners that has special money set aside to do exactly that, to help you in the aftermath, to help you get prepared and harden your facilities and get ready for emergencies before they happen. So we wanted to also make sure that we got that information out. And this information, of course, these are the kinds of things that we go up on our website during emergency situations to make sure that our businesses have that information. Our contact information is now up on the board. I'm Steve Tinsley. Daryl Perez Rosenbaum is our special project coordinator who also works on these matters and works with businesses to help them get prepared, to have a plan, and then of course we work in concert with the SBDC. And that's essentially all that I have. Thanks again for the time, and thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Stephen, and thanks for that information. And again, folks, I'll remind you, as I've been doing a little chatting with the Q&A, that this information will be on our website, broward.org/econdev, so you'll have access to it. But as Steve just got through saying on the preparedness side, even with the BBIF can probably help someone get prepared, and understanding that you prepare to go into the season. Unfortunately, sometimes we have hurricanes during the season. Then you have to make sure that your plan is available to come out of the season. And one of the things that we do know, it is about the preparedness relevant to insurance. Do you have it? How much do you have? What needs to be covered? What needs to be done? And we're going to bring a friend on today to share information with us about insurance and some of the things you'd be preparing for, some of the things you should consider, as well as take a look at understanding that being here, as Tracy did say, we do know one thing. Between now and the next 20 years, there will be a hurricane. So with that, we want to talk about insurance. And with that, we'll bring on Steve Klein, and Steve will share information with us this morning. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity to talk about preparing. I made a couple notes on some of the other speakers. You know, they talked about before, during, and after the disaster, you know, the resiliency and all that. Insurance is really important to being prepared before, that the insurance will be there during, and of course to be able to pay if you have a claim after. I'm going to go through a couple types of policies that are needed for businesses in South Florida that will hopefully create a discussion later on how much you need and all that. But why is it so important to have the insurance? I mean, it covers the costs associated with property damage and liability claims. Without insurance, a business owner may not have to pay out of pocket for damages. You do have a deductible, but the insurance company is a financially will pay to make the business whole. Insurance helps reduce the risk of a business having to dip in their own savings or possibly going out of business. Insurance is actually transferring of a risk that a business has, to another party. Insurance rates are developed by how many businesses or people are within that risk, and you're spreading the risk around because it can't happen to everybody at one time. So transferring the risk for the business owners to the insurance company for unexpected losses that might result in a financial loss. Next slide. The different types of property insurance that are needed for a business here, or different types of just insurance in general. Property insurance, which includes your building, your business personal property or contents, your business income, which you hear a lot about right now on the COVID-19, equipment breakdown, and other types of properties that you might have that are unique to certain types of businesses. Liability insurance, this is for third-party injuries that a business might be liable, including property damage to others, bodily injuries. That's not as necessary for disaster preparedness, but it's extremely necessary in today's society with how many lawsuits are filed. Other types of insurance that are interesting for businesses are flood insurance. When you have a hurricane or a natural disaster, rising water is flood insurance, and that's usually excluded from a regular property policy. So that's something else, depending on if you're in a high hazard or low hazard flood zone. Broward County is very well managed, their water management around here. So they just remapped several years ago to find out that most of Broward County is in low flood zones. Workers' comp is if employees get injured. Employee theft is self-explanatory. Umbrella, health insurance, etc. There's all those types of insurance that businesses need to be prepared and to not go into a financial problem and not be able to afford to stay into business. Next slide. Property insurance. They can provide payment to an insured if his or her property is damaged or destroyed by an accident, storm, fire, theft, or other peril. This is determined based on what you have. A lot of businesses rent a location, so they only might be required to have contents insurance, not necessarily insure the building. They could have, using a restaurant for an example, they do a build out within a building that they rent, and they might be responsible for the construction of what was inside the building, and they would need to have that covered. The value is determined based on the replacement cost of any items that you have there in an office, a desk, a computer, that kind of stuff. In a contracting business, any of their contracting equipment, that's how you determine the amount of insurance that you should get. The next slide. To protect against a disaster, you should have if you own the building, you need to have insurance for that. There's, like I mentioned earlier, there's deductibles which get factored in, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, about how you can decide what you need to insure, what your risk tolerance is, how much you're willing to pay before you need the insurance company to pay, how much you have in reserves. Business personal property, we just talked about, was based on your value of your contents in your inventory. It's extremely important to have that insured to the value. If you were to have a hurricane that destroyed your whole building and everything was gone, you would need to replace that. You would want to replace it with today's price versus when you bought it maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So there is a difference in that. So you have to factor that into there. And then just as important is business income. It's based on your regular expenses incurred by the business during a certain time period. Business income will replace your income that's lost and your ongoing expenses if you have to move to another location until your primary location is open. It's different for every company. Some companies, there's coverages called actual loss sustained, which means they cover any of your cost up to 12 months. With some companies, you have to buy a specific amount per month. That's right now, you hear about this on the COVID-19 side, which really is not covered by most policies because of what caused it. Usually to get a business income claim, you have to have physical damage created by a covered peril to your property. So if you have a hurricane and a tree falls on your building and you can no longer work, that's when a business income claim would be paid. If you have certain policies include if the power goes out, if a transformer down the street goes out and you have no power and you cannot work because you have no power, you can get a business income claim. Usually you need to have physical damage to your existing structure. Whether you rent it or you own it, physical damage to that building will allow you to do that. The deductibles, that's the amount of money paid out of pocket for the policy from the policyholder before the insurance company begins to pay. There's ranges of deductibles from $100 to thousands of dollars, and that's something that you would have to discuss with your insurance professional on what you're willing to take as a risk and what you can afford, because the higher the deductible, the lower your premium, the lower the deductible, the higher your premium. And that's, you don't want to go insurance poor, we call it, where you're paying for insurance that maybe you don't need. There's several types of deductibles. All other peril deductibles, which would be like your fire, your theft, that kind of stuff. Wind and hail deductible, which is what we would be concerned about with a hurricane. And there's different forms of the wind and hail deductible. You got wind and hail, hurricane deductible, and named storm deductible. Each one is a different, and the policy can be a different amount. So you need to make sure that you review your policy with your insurance agent on what your deductible is. That deductible is usually a percentage of the premium. Of the coverage. Deductibles can be dollar amounts, percentages, or time element. The time element is for the business income. Usually on a business income type claim, there's a 72-hour waiting period. So they will not pay for you for the first 72 hours of a claim. So you would have to be out of business beyond that before it pays. And like I said, within your policy, there's many different types of deductibles that can be on there. Next slide. And here's how a claim works. The event occurs, so you have a hurricane, fire, tornado, etc., whatever it's going to be, comes, damages your business. Business contacts their insurance agent or their company to file the claim with the insurance. An adjuster is assigned to review if the event is covered by the policy. Obviously, a hurricane, if you had hurricane coverage, would be covered. And if coverage is available, the business is paid less the deductible for the covered peril. So an example of a 3% hurricane deductible. Well, here I have an example. Hurricane John hits South Florida and causes damage to a business resulting in $100,000 of property damage. Insured has $250,000 worth of property coverage and has business income coverage at $10,000 per month for 6 months. The deductible for the hurricane are 5%. And the deductible for business income is 72 hours. So when you have a percentage deductible, it's not a percentage of the claim, it's a percentage of what you insure. So the insured is responsible for $12,500 deductible for the hurricane, which is your 5% of your $250,000. The insurance company will pay $87,000 for the property damage. Sometimes they pay less that until you get it repaired, and then they pay you the difference. Some companies pay you the full amount up front. If they're able to open their business within 72 hours, there'd be no claim for the payment for the business income. After 72 hours, they'd be paid up to $10,000 per month. And in this case, they had a 6-month benefit, so they'd only pay up to that. How it works is if you're 15 days, you would get, it's a 30-day month. For 15 days, you get $5,000. It's prorated. It's prorated to the amount of days that you would be out. Or it could be your actual loss sustained up to $10,000 per month. So if you're in the first 15 days, your claim is your actual loss sustained business income is $9,500. They're going to pay you $9,500, but they're not going to pay you any more than $10,000 per month. Next slide. So insurance is an important part of the financial plan of a business. You got to know your risk tolerance. That's how you determine the premium that you can afford, the deductible that you can afford, so that you're prepared when the hurricane comes. Even with insurance, you still need reserves to pay for the deductibles. You got to be prepared always for that financial exposure of whatever your deductible may be. And the purpose of insurance is to shift the risk to the insurance company and take it away from you. So you're going to pay a small amount of money today to cover a big claim that's in the future, which we don't know when it's going to happen. There's several types of insurance that you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of what your risk is. You should be talking to a professional that could advise you on how to mitigate. So maybe insurance isn't something that you need for a certain type of risk, and it is something for something else that you have in your business. Transferring it to the insurance company is going to save you a lot of money. Nobody likes to write the check to insurance companies, but it's well worth it when you have the claim. Most insurance agents will walk you through the claim process, get you taken care of, reporting the claim. An adjuster will be assigned from the carrier. They'll help. They'll be your go-between between the insurance company and yourself. And that's pretty much it on insurance policies that you would need for hurricane coverage or for disaster, any type of disaster that you would have. Again, I advise you to talk to your insurance advisor, and every business is slightly different, and everybody needs their own advisor to tell them what they need or advise them what's available for them so that you can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Steve, thank you, and thank you for sharing that information. Again, we appreciate the fact that we all know that if we have to go through this, we need to also try to find the best ways we can to cover ourselves and our businesses, and insurance is certainly a necessity. My next presenter is a very, very, very wealth of information, and I'm just so proud to be in South Florida. I'm proud to be in South Florida knowing that the SBA is represented well, and she's certainly a partner of Broward County's. Ms. Harris serves as the Assistant District Director for Marketing and Outreach for Area 1. And again, we look at her as family because she's always there when we need her, and she never forgets about Broward, though she's a little bit further to the south. She certainly never forgets about Broward. So Ms. Harris, please share with us this morning. Good morning and thank you.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much. Wow, what a great group you've had presenting today. I mean, you know, no one ever wants to think about preparedness, but it really does make the difference when we talk about being in this place at this time. Obviously, no one could have predicted a pandemic, right? But some things are predictable, particularly when you live in South Florida.
Yes.
So let's move on to the next slide. I want to blow through my slides really quickly if I can, because I don't want us to be short on time for questions if we're taking them. Yep, next slide, please. And then I want to just pose a few questions myself. So SBA, we are in the marketplace to help entrepreneurs start their businesses, grow their businesses, and really help them to succeed in business. And part of that is about recovery. And one of the things we know from the Institute for Business and Home Safety is that an estimated 25% of businesses won't reopen after a major disaster. And that stat, no doubt, was really limited to what we know of as natural disasters. And so there's no telling how many, unfortunately, will not survive this pandemic. But one of the things we know is as we move into hurricane season, there are things that you can do to make sure that you do make it through the predictable threats to South Florida by creating a plan of action and keeping those who are connected to you updated on those plans. And that's something that Anil shared with us. Next slide, please. So in the event a disaster happens, and you know, we've been talking about our SBA economic injury disaster loans since this pandemic and the disaster was declared for the entire country back in March. So over the last 6 or 7 weeks, we've been talking a great deal about those economic injury disaster loans. But for hurricane season, what you'll want to know too is that we have a physical damage loan that is really our more popular loan. I think now all of the response to the pandemic is going to cause our economic injury disaster loans to catch up with the stats for the physical damage. But remember this, okay, when you go into hurricane season, that should something happen and the hurricane or flooding or winds cause damage to your property, we provide direct loans to homeowners, renters, businesses of all sizes, and private nonprofits with direct loans. Homeowners can get up to $200,000 to help repair or replace their primary residences. And homeowners and renters can also obtain $40,000 in loan to replace the contents of their home. Businesses and nonprofits up to $2 million. Now, this is for, in the physical damage arena, is for your uncompensated losses. So we just heard from Mr. Klein about insurance. So where your insurance leaves off or doesn't cover you, this loan can fill that gap. So for example, if your deductible is more than the cost to your repairs, you would come to SBA and get that money to, say, repair your roof. So this is for your uncompensated losses. But insurance is going to be your first place. And to the extent that you have insurance, we're going to ask you to obviously tap into that. But we will also help you even before insurance kicks in. And then what we do is we take those insurance proceeds and pay down your loan. In the same way that the economic injury disaster loan has a potential term of up to 30 years, so does the physical damage loan. And the interest rates on all of our disaster loans are fairly low, and they are simple interest. So they're not designed to burden you forever, but they are designed to help you get through a short-term disaster, because we're interested in the long-term recovery of communities. Next slide. So I just wanted to put this screenshot of what's available on our website. If you go to sba.gov and you go into the business guides, you'll see that there's a tab for prepare for emergencies. And I just excerpted one small part of this part of the website that talks about specific disaster checklists and tips that you can use to prepare for, in our case, hurricane season. No surprise, it's right up there at the top of the list. Okay, next slide. And this is our customer service center number. If you'd like to reach out to SBA, perhaps about your current economic injury disaster loan application, the number is 800-659-2955. And you could also email them at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. And right now we are not accepting applications for the EIDL program, except from agribusinesses. They were recently included as eligible businesses under the EIDL program. So agribusinesses, businesses that revolve around agriculture, may apply for the EIDL program. And anyone who applied to our EIDL loan program early in either phase 1 or 2 of our application period, the phases that were before the current streamlined process, and your application starts with the number 2, you may go in right now and reapply for the EIDL program. We will match your application that you would submit today with the one you had already submitted. Please don't go into the portal if I have not described you as an agricultural-based business, or you are a person with an application that starts with a 2. You are wasting your time and ours, because what we're going to do is write you back and say that you are not, your application was not accepted right now. We are hopeful that our program will reopen for businesses, but right now it is not. We need to get through all of the applications we already have, and for which we may or may not have enough funding. So keep that in mind. Now, one of the things, it occurred to me as I was out running with my dog this morning, like, what do I really want to tell you? Because everything I've already told you, you can find on our website, right? And so, because I've been at SBA for 21 years, and I worked there and have worked here through the recession of 2008, and we've worked through multiple hurricane seasons, active hurricane season. Now COVID, my question for you is, what have you learned from having gone through these experiences? What have you learned about yourself, about your business, about the economy, about your community, about your industry, about your own practices within your business? What have you learned? Number 2, what would have helped you then and now to be resilient? What Mr. Jackson talked to us about, and I really enjoyed that definition. What would have helped you speed up and strengthen the response, your response to the difficulty that you faced? What would have helped you overcome and persevere through this current period? Would a plan have helped you? Would a change in your infrastructure? Would insurance have helped you? How about some savings in your business and in your personal life? What would have helped you then and now? And then how, once you've determined those things, how can you now implement those things going forward? Now, I'm glad Anil is on this session with us, because, you know, the ancient Proverbs tell us that if you walk with the wise, you will become wise, and that there is a safety that comes in a multitude of counselors. And so you've had that this morning. And Anil and those at the Small Business Development Center, as well as our other resource partners, the Women's Business Center up in Delray, our SCORE chapters that are all around our district and around the nation. Those folks who are there and experts in their own rights can help you become wise. Don't just, go for a quickie, right, with them. They're looking to have a long-standing relationship with you to help you really move through this process, come out the other side, implement those changes that will help you with the next drama that presents itself. Because you want to be able to ride out these storms and come out the other side with minimal damage and most efficiency and effectiveness. Because let me tell you something, folks. I stumbled upon this quote by Dr. King, and I cannot get it out of my mind. It's so important. He said that all work that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. My friends, you entrepreneurs, you job creators, you economy sustainers, you community builders, your work and the work you provide to others is dignified and important. And I beg you to pursue it with the utmost excellence. Thanks so much.
No, and thank you for those comments, because we do recognize, and our business community recognizes, it's not only about being prepared, and it's about recognizing those things that we go through. Some might seem like they're the first time, but when you get that chance to look at it, it's similar to something that was prior, and it's always that question that you just posed. Are we ready? What did we learn from it? What will we actually take from this to prepare ourselves, not just to sustain our businesses, but to prepare ourselves for the next hurricane, next pandemic, next event that would cause disruption in our business and in our personal lives. So thank you for that. And I felt that fever. I thought Thursday was Sunday and I was in church, but thank you very much. Appreciate it. And at this time, certainly want to just transition over to another very close friend of the county's, a close friend of ours here at the Office of Economic and Small Business Development. Ms. Juliette Rolock is going to come to us on behalf of FPL, Florida Power and Lighting, but she's also our chairperson this year for the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, and she's doing an excellent job of assuring that the information that we have as a county is made available to all the businesses throughout Broward County, and that we continue to uplift our county. But again, her team always joins us each year when it's time for us to talk about business resiliency. So Juliette, welcome and glad to see you this morning.
Thank you, Sandy. Always great to see you. Well, I'm telling you, Althea has me all revved up. And it was something, I have something in common with her as she talked about walking her dog this morning. I also walked my dog this morning. It was a beautiful day, but I thought to myself as I thought about this presentation, it's probably one of the very few things that I can do without power, right? I think we can all agree that FPL provides a fundamental resource for business resilience, and that is power. So needless to say, we take it very seriously. We understand that this has to be a priority. I've worked with the company for over 20 years, and believe you me, FPL's priority has always been and continues to be keeping your lights on. So it also clearly plays a role in keeping our economy strong, as we've heard throughout the prior presenters. If there's one thing in the past few months have shown us is that there's no such thing as being too prepared. And FPL has had a pandemic and hurricane plans both in place for many years, and regularly trains and drills for unplanned events and crises. We also, in fact, have a command center similar to our county's EOC on smaller scale. But the point is we make sure that we are prepared to serve our customers. And that's important because from our internal sense, we have to be ready to make sure that we provide you the power so that you can be ready. So it's more important than ever to both FPL and our customers are prepared this hurricane season, as we could be dealing with the potential of a double whammy, a hurricane and a pandemic. However, we have an unwavering commitment to serving our communities during this COVID pandemic and 2020 hurricane season. I don't know if you guys have been counting. For us, it's a big deal. So I know that we're exactly 25 days away from June 1st, which is the beginning of hurricane season. And that's close enough for us. So we are working hard and already going through drills. You know, FPL's commitment to customers goes beyond keeping the lights on, though, during our pandemic. And so I really wanted to share that we have donated millions to frontline agencies for COVID relief, and we'll make a one-time reduction to lower the May bill by about 25%. We will also be extending our disconnections through May, end of May, and we'll certainly continue working with customers who are challenged to pay their bills. I know that's always a concern, and fpl.com/help is the easiest way for you to find the resources so that we can begin those conversations if you do need help. And that absolutely covers our businesses as well as our residential customers. So FPL was able to do all that we have because we've had this pandemic and a plan in place. And that has been since 2009, the H1N1 pandemic, for those of you who recall. And we're able to immediately implement a robust plan and continue to safely deliver on our commitments. You know, talking about internally how we maintain business continuity and resilience, one of the primary things is keeping lines of communication open with our employees, providing health and safety guidelines, as well as COVID policies as they emerge. FPL has incorporated social distancing wherever possible, and where feasible, having employees work remotely. For me, this has been just over 2 months that I've been working remotely at home, or as Anil would say, from a satellite location. So we also have minimized the movement of crews and have employees parking their trucks at home. So many of you may have seen FPL trucks in your neighborhood. And that's because we want to assure that our crews are not gathering at our service centers, that they are able to employ social distancing and also more easily deploy and keep in the same area that their crews are assigned in the same work areas. So that minimizes their being at all affected by this pandemic. We've also minimized crews entering customers' homes and businesses. However, a lot of information is available online. We've given the appropriate PPE, we've implemented extensive cleaning and sanitation measures, and we've provided complimentary telehealth for employees in administering screening and temperature checks of employees in critical functions. Keeping our employees safe and healthy is a key priority, and we are laser focused on making sure we do our best for employees so that we can best serve our customers. So much so that we recently launched a TV ad campaign, which I would like to share. If we could move to slide 3 in the video, please.
At FPL, the safety of our crews, our community, our neighbors is number one. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have temporarily suspended non-emergency in-person visits while our crews continue to perform essential work in your neighborhoods. Please, if you see them working, it's important to maintain 6 feet of distance at all times for the health and safety of everyone in our community. It's just the neighborly thing to do.
So as you can see, safe distancing is really important for our crews as well. So they're out trimming trees, flying drones to assess equipment, still putting in power lines or poles, stronger power poles, so that we are as resilient as possible for this upcoming storm season, which promises to be a lively one. So, you know, living in Florida comes with the fundamental responsibility of preparing for hurricane. And we all have a role in preparing for storm season, just like we all have a role in protecting ourselves and our families during this pandemic. FPL has a plan for storm season, and we're doing everything we can to assure that we have the best possible position to restore service quickly. And we have spent approximately $5 billion in investments each year for the past several years, and plan to spend at about that same pace going forward for the next few years, all toward the effort of improving our grid. And those investments continue to pay off. We've seen that after Wilma, we have the significant hardening that we've done with our facilities. That is getting in those concrete poles, making sure we're doing more undergrounding. All of that has resulted in significant improvements in restoration times in after our more recent hurricanes. We've installed more than 5 million smart meters and more than 120,000 intelligent devices along the energy grid. And folks, that is what really helps us detect problems and restore service even faster if outages occur. We're deploying drones and autonomous robots to allow us to quickly assess damage and help dispatch crews where they're needed first. In fact, FPL was the first utility to utilize drones in after the last hurricane. We're able to see well in advance where had the worst damage and how the best to respond. Trimming over 15,000 miles of power lines each year, that helps us keep the lines clear and prevent outages and also damage during the storm. So, this is all toward making our service better. And so in addition to avoiding power outages altogether, the smart grid devices allow us to restore the power before it is even safe to send crews in the field. So we can actually remotely restore power in some instances, which is a huge benefit to everyone. Now, FPL has also modernized power plants, so it requires it much more energy efficient and much easier to restore as well. Now, the other thing we're really happy about is the 24 solar power plants we have in our system don't need anyone to operate them at all. So as long as the sun is shining and it's daytime, they will be providing, certainly they will be providing power in the system. And that is really making a difference in us being able to have a resilient grid. We are also in our command center coming up for this hurricane season, making sure that we implement all of those safety precautions that we mentioned that we're doing for the pandemic in all of our centers. So we will make sure that every employee who responds to this storm season will be in a safe environment and practicing the same protocols. We'll even provide nursing stations at staging sites and the buildings where our employees are staged. So that's really important. We are making sure that everybody stays safe. We ask our customers for patience during these extraordinary circumstances. While we're certainly hope it won't happen, we have to be prepared for the possibility of being out of power for an extended period of time should a storm affect us this season. That always happens, but it may be more difficult as we do not know the extent to which other utilities will be able to come and help partner with us to get you back on track. But you can rely on the fact that we are doing everything we can to make sure that the power is restored as quickly as possible. Please, we invite you to try to be as responsible as you can as well. If you want information, there's at fpl.com/storm. Provide a lot of information on how you can also prepare your businesses. Please think of hurricane season beyond checklists. Consider developing an emergency plan that will help you think about how a storm and resulting power outages can affect your family or your business. Let us all make it our personal responsibility to do our part so that everyone in Florida and Broward County is prepared this season. I myself, our company really urges us, we have to submit our own personal plans. So I know what happens to my husband, my son, and even our dog should a hurricane arrive. And I really encourage you to think about doing that for yourself. Well, that concludes my comments, but of course I have to commend Sandy and the county's OESBD office for hosting this virtual town hall and thank them for inviting me to participate. Thank you.
Juliet, thank you, and thank FPL for that information. And again, thank you on behalf of the county for the support that you and the team always provide us to assure that the needs of the counties are met. And even under those unfortunate circumstances, when we have those hurricanes, that we can count on you guys to get the power back as soon as possible. So we did want to take some time to entertain some questions. We have been able, myself and some of the presenters, to answer some of the questions that were actually coming in. I know I sent Mr. Jackson an actual text letting him know that someone had a question for him, Tracy, in terms of maybe you've actually answered that one, I believe. But I do have one right now for Mr. Klein. Steve, on the insurance side, we do have a request or a question. What types of insurance policies are available for pandemic protection?
So, not many.
Right.
That's the issue that's happening right now. For a pandemic, for a policy to pay a claim, you have to have that, what I talked about before, physical damage to your premises. And a pandemic or a virus is not causing physical damage to your premises. And most policies, if not all, have an exclusion for bacteria, viruses, that type of claim. There are companies that do. Famously, Wimbledon had a policy. It was canceled. They had a policy, but that's a definitive event, meaning it's 2 weeks. They know the time. They know what the exposure is. So it's really hard. There are companies that do write it with minimum premiums of $150,000, which would not suit a small business or the crowd that we're talking to today. So you don't see that. One of my clients is one of the state universities, and we're talking with them about possibly putting in place a policy for this, but they're large. So it's really hard to get that coverage.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that information. I have another question here that I'm going to respond to, but after I'm done, folks can certainly add on. The question came in, how to avoid contractors' fraud in this virtual time for business. So one of the things that we like to remind all of our businesses, our small businesses, is that even when taking contracts with prime contractors, which are larger firms, or the county, you want everything in writing. And I do know in terms of this day and age, with everything being expedited, you want to take the time to vet the person who's offering your service. Even in this day and age, as this question asks about virtual time for business, yep, you want to go to a website. You want to get information off that website. You want to go to references. So again, the theme is, even in these emergencies, if you're dealing business or doing business virtual, you still need to take the time. You have to take some time to vet the contracts, the agreements, and the arrangements. And I intentionally said contract. Yes, you should be having a contract or an agreement for any and all services you're looking to get from someone who's going to provide a service. So it's key that even in this time of virtual business, you don't jump just because someone says I can. You have to take the time to use many resources to vet that business. So at this time, I'll entertain any other responses to that question from any of my other presenters.
Sandy, it's Tracy.
Tracy?
Yeah, the question I was asking you earlier dealt with becoming a vendor for the county for debris removal and things of that nature following the storm. So first, to answer that question, because I'm not sure I did online, that's all handled through our purchasing department, and Sandy and his team can get you all the numbers and the contacts there. All the contractors are vetted and approved by our processes on that side of the house. And then the county agencies have the opportunity to access those services upon need. And it dovetails into what Sandy's talking about, because as you might imagine, there are a lot of people who, quote, go into business to make money off disasters. And it's to everyone's advantage to deal with reputable companies. And the best time to do that is to find out who they are now while the sun is shining. You want to make sure that in your time of need, you're not turning to someone who's already planned to scam you and already has a plan to spend the money that they're going to steal from you, because bad people do exist. So do your homework ahead of time and be ready for your test. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for that information. Another question that we had, good morning, Sandy and Steve. So that's us locally, Steve. Want to find out, when will the city put out, hopefully you mean the county put out bids for disinfecting city properties? Well, understand this, the county currently has janitorial firms who are contracted. Many of them, their contracts grew during this period for additional services, but you want to pay attention to all county bids in BidSync, BIDSYNC. BidSync is the county's portal for all of our procurement. So if you're not registered as a county vendor, you can register to become a county vendor for free. No matter where you are as a business, you can register to be a county vendor for free on the BidSync website. And once you are a vendor, you will have access directly based on your NAICS code, your North American Industry Code. Whatever you sign up as, those bids, whenever the county's agencies are buying anything, you'll get access to those bids. They'll come straight to your computer. You can certainly trail our office, because as we find out information in advance, we post that on our website, and we also have a Wednesday newsletter. So again, for everyone, broward.org/econdev, ECONDEV. That's our website where you can get all of our resource information. And again, the presentations from today, this PowerPoint, will also be put up on our website. But also on our website, you can get links to how to become a county vendor, and if you choose, how to become a certified small business with Broward. But for anyone looking to do business with the county, the first step is to become a county vendor for free. And the second step is to make sure that you trail BidSync to know what the county's buying, so you'll get those bids and you have a chance to participate. For another question here, I work for a company that survived operating in Puerto Rico when Maria hurricane passed by. Would it be possible to introduce my company to Broward County and FPL? You could certainly introduce your company to us by contacting us on that website or sending me an email directly. And Juliet did have the FPL contact website and link up, as well as her information. And again, we will post that again so you can have direct link and contact information. But Juliet, did you want to speak to that? This company who survived in Puerto Rico is now in this area, and they were trying to get introduced to my office as well as FPL.
Certainly, Sandy. So as I mentioned before, there are a lot of resources that we have online at fpl.com/storm. And regarding any assistance with setting up with payments or any issues regarding that, it's fpl.com/help. So those are the two primary resources. But there's a wealth of information on our website, including an economic development portal that provides information that may help, just generally help with your business as you think about how you're getting that set up. So that may also be helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. And if you are a vendor that can assist with business resiliency and continuity pre and post disaster, who is the correct department to contact? Certainly, we would like to know on behalf of the ESF function of the county, our office would want to know that. And I'm sure my partners, even over at the SBDC, would like to know if you are an organization that could assist with business resiliency and continuity. Mr. Chang, you want to add to that? Is that accurate?
Yes, that would be great. And I echo your remarks in regards to the BidSync. And if they or anyone would like to get registered with the county or the city or the state for government contracting, we have a PTAC, Procurement and Technical Assistance Center, that can assist you with that. And in regards to the business resiliency and continuity prep and post-disaster, that is something that I think you would really have a great or significant amount interaction in regards to coming to these events and interacting with the individuals and companies here. I think it's really key for you to network at these great events at the county, the cities, all these events with the business continuity side. Thank you. And oh, Sandy, in regards to the contractor verification, I want to echo something in regards to emails. I received an email, for instance, from I don't want to say the name of the bank, but it was a banking institution, and it looked to be a very legitimate email. Now, the phone number in that email looked to be inaccurate. So something with cybersecurity, we actually have training on that. But in regards to cybersecurity, I want everyone to just be aware when you're receiving emails, make sure the links, before you click them, hover over the link and just see where does this link take you. If it's a banking institution, should have the banking URL there. In regards to contact numbers, I would try to stick to what is present or current on the banking institution's webpage. So for instance, that email had a phone number. It did not look to be accurate, and it's because it was not a 1-800 or 188. So I went ahead and just looked at the banking institution's website and looked at their phone number or contact information, and it was a fraudulent email. So it's very key that you look at these things, and they may be very subtle, but review your emails. I know things are moving very quickly, but please take the time and due diligence to revisit and look at all of these key facts, because when you're responding quickly, you may miss them. Okay. Thank you, Sandy.
No, very good. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Ms. Harris, if you're still here, I'm going to let you respond to this one. We hear about the PPP loans, and many of us have applied, but I haven't heard of anyone who's been approved. Is there a timeline for loan approval? I will say before Ms. Harris takes over, we have had several of our businesses to be approved, and we still have some waiting, but I'm thankful that we actually know businesses that are certified with the county and other businesses in the county who have been approved and received theirs to date. But Ms. Harris, please take that, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate the opportunity to share. Listen, the current stats about the PPP2 are up on our website and were updated yesterday. And right now, over 2.4 million loans have been done for $183 billion and change. So lots of folks are getting loans. And I would like to add that in Florida, we are the #2 state in the nation to receive PPP funds. And of course, we like to think that that's because we've done this great job of telling y'all all about it, how to go about it, answering your questions over the last 7 weeks, multiple times a day, every day. But lots of folks are getting PPP loans. We have a YouTube channel now where we're interviewing folks. So Sandy, if you have a list of folks that we could interview, we'd love to do that, because it's really important just to show that all kinds of business owners are getting those PPP loans. We have larger small businesses, small businesses, medium-sized, women, men, Black, white, Hispanic, all kinds of folks are getting these loans. So, but let me address the question, because it's really important, because we also know that there's a lot of misinformation out there. So to review, PPP loans are done through the banks. Now, banks have long blamed SBA for slow, waiting for approvals, all kinds of things. In the PPP process, the bank, once they submit the information into our system, the response we give is almost instantaneous. So nobody's waiting on anything from SBA if they are doing the process the way they're supposed to. Secondly, once we give the approval, the bank or financial institution has 10 days to get the money out to you. So be in touch with your lender. If you are with a large national institution, banking institution, you might consider going with a smaller institution, and I'll tell you why. Because in PPP round 2, the Treasury and SBA, we have set aside a big chunk of change for just small and medium-sized financial institutions, those with 10 to 50 billion in assets or less. Okay, so your national institutions have the greater facility and capacity in some respects, but they also have far more customers buying for the money. We also made it such that one day, but maybe last week or so, only small institutions and the CDFIs and the micro lenders were able to put applications into the system from 4 p.m. to midnight. And so we are sectioning off the money to make sure that smaller institutions and small businesses are getting access to this PPP money. And we see in the average loan amounts under PPP 1, the average loan amount was over 200,000. This round, it's under 80,000. So small businesses are getting access. So if you're at a national institution and you can't get any traction and you can't get any information, be aware that there are thousands, over 5,000 different financial institutions and lenders who are part of this process. But find another, someone, I forget who, mentioned BBIF. The Black Business Investment Fund of Florida is doing PPP loans. Accion, which is one of SBA's micro lenders, is doing PPP loans. I believe the Urban League of Broward County is doing PPP loans. Opelika CDC, lots of smaller institutions are doing these loans. QuickBooks is doing them. Square, Cabbage, PayPal. So you might, depending on your other relationships, consider much smaller institutions. They have faster turnaround times. What we're hearing is they have better customer service, and they're letting you know where you are in the process. Now, if you are at that large financial institution and you decide to put in application at another lender, be aware that only the first application that makes it into our system will be funded, okay, or is approved. So the system knows, our system knows that you've applied more than once. This, so that the second lender or whoever puts your application in second will immediately be rejected. So I say that to say, pay attention to the communications that you get from either one, because the information that you've been rejected for duplication means that the other one has put in your application, and 10 days, within 10 days, I guess, of you finding out or shorter, you should be getting a loan. And so hopefully that helps people kind of get a gauge of where they are in the process, but fear not. Because as of, I want to say maybe yesterday or the day before, there was still $40 billion left. So there's still money, but do act swiftly, please.
Thank you, Althea. And we are going to have to wind down as we're running out of time. But to Althea's last points, you can also go to our website. And our website lists the SBA lenders in the area, but we also got the additional list of the smaller banks, the credit unions, and the other institutions and entities that are actually lending. So we have that list with contact information on our website. And again, we're going to take this entire PowerPoint, make it available on our website within the next 3 hours. But if you want to take it down, broward.org/econdev, that's short for economic development, is how you get to our website, and you can go to my COVID-19 resources and see additional information. So I personally want to thank all of our presenters this morning. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your support of Broward County and all of Broward County businesses. And I will take this executive privilege And I'll start with Tracy and go through all of our presenters. And if you want to take about 30 seconds to share something or have a closing comment, we certainly welcome that on behalf of all the listeners today. So starting with you, Mr. Tracy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My comment is the same comment that I share with our emergency response team, which is our countywide group of departments that helps us to manage emergencies, that we are in the best place, in the best county, in the best state to deal with any type of emergency. And our business community is certainly a big part of how we feel that way. We're so appreciative of you guys and so appreciative of you, Sandy, and your team to help continue to push us all into excellence so we can take care of Broward. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for your time this morning. Mr. Chang.
Hi. Okay, Sandy, thank you for the opportunity. I believe, well, based on discussions on our side and our team, I've echoed this response, and it's something along the lines of a race. So this is not a sprint. We're in it for a marathon. And this, in regards to the hurricane, the possibility of a hurricane impacting us is definitely going to extend that marathon. So everyone, please hang in there. And if you do need the assistance, feel free to reach out to us. We are at the SBDC. Our website is sbdc.fau.edu, and you can request consultation online. Again, sbdc.fau.edu, and feel free to contact us at any time. And in regards to the other team members here, I want to thank everyone and thank you for forwarding the slides, whoever you are. It was a great job. Thank you for this great event. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Steve Tinsley?
Yes. Let me just quickly say, and I'll tag on to what Tracy said about being in the best place in the country to withstand and be resilient to emergency events by just highlighting the partnership that's represented here this morning in this discussion. I think what sets our community apart from everyone else and what makes this environment so great for business is that there is unprecedented collaboration between our community partners, from our municipalities to our private sector partner, the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, Career Source Broward, our workforce development group, our county agencies, Florida Power and Light, the SBA. You see here is a network that works as well as a collaborative body as just about any place that you'll find anywhere. And I think that's one of the reasons that we respond and recover the way that we do. I'm happy to be a part of this and proud to be a part of it. And I hope that it provides a lot of our business community with comfort of knowing that you have a support team here that is unlike anywhere in the world. And that's really all that I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Steve, for that. And Mr. Klein, on insurance?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little insurance knowledge with some people, and hopefully they were able to learn something. If I could leave everybody with one thing, it's just be prepared, know your risk, talk to a professional, and be ready and stay healthy. Thank you.
Great tip, great tip. Ms. Harris?
Okay, thank you so much, Sandy. First thing I want to say is thank you so much to you, Sandy, for your leadership, your constant, excellent leadership for small businesses and Broward County. And of course, those tentacles reach out beyond Broward County. So thank you very much. And I do just want to share that I put in the chat Treasury's website. You can go there to find that list of lenders. You can find great information on the PPP if you're interested. That's treasury.gov/cares. And our website is sba.gov. If you'd like to sign up for our e-blast regarding information about our programs and services and the continuation of the EIDL program, our local website is sba.gov/South Florida. If you scroll to the bottom right corner, you'll see the sign up function. There's a calendar of events, as well as other useful information on our website. And so I leave you all with the two things that I said before. There's safety in a multitude of counselors. Get help. We have that help available to you. There's no reason to ride this storm out by yourself. Walk with the wise and be wise. That implies friendship. It implies frequency. So do that with regularity, and remember what Dr. King said: all work that uplifts humanity is dignified and is important and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. Keep going with your excellence. We appreciate you so much, and reach out to us if you need me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Juliet, please.
All right, Sandy. So, you know, there's so much going on now around us, with lots of things being thrown at us. So I just like to remind everyone to be mindful, you know, pay attention to everything that's going on and apply the learnings from them. There's so many excellent resources, use them. Prepare, 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 have a plan. And finally, I just like to say to everyone, be safe, be healthy, and be resilient.
Juliet, thank you. And again, to all of our presenters, thank you. And for all of those who was able to follow us this morning, I know we went a little bit long, but hopefully it was worth it. Thank you, and reach out to us. And you've heard many of the presenters say the same. Use the resources that are available. And as Mr. Chang said, this is a marathon and it's not a sprint. But as a part of that marathon, the lessons that we gain, the information that we garner, let's use that to sustain ourselves and, or as you just heard, prepare ourselves in case this ever happens again or anything like this takes place. So again, on behalf of Broward County, our Mayor Dale Holness, Vice Mayor Steve Geller, and our county commissioners, and my boss, the County Administrator Bertha Henry, thank you for joining us this morning. And we hope you all remain safe, and we want to see you now through hurricane season and this time next year when we're truly gathering again. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you all.
Bye now.